All right, Jim, so we love tools, obviously, right? We love SATA tools. I'm a huge fan of them. Something that is interesting is when you go into different shops, the shop we're in today, for example, the booths are set up perfectly to spray water. But there's going to be some jobs, bumper cover, great example, where you have nooks and crannies, you have some pockets where the ceiling fans, the corner blowers, they can't really get all those little tight spots that we need to get, right? And there's a ton of these out there, right? There's different Venturi style blowers, there's air blades, things like that. I'm a fan of the dry jet because I like some of the things you can do. And this is just me, not as a SATA rep, but as an end user. I like the fact that I can swap a strainer instead of having to pull it out, clean it in lacquer thinner, deal with the metal band in the back. I like that I can rotate this front cone. It gives me kind of a different dynamic of the air. I love the control on the front. So I guess as far as the end user goes, are there some tips, some tricks, some things that you see that maybe you wish you could tell somebody about the air mover?
So with the Dry Jet 2, some of the differences, like you brought up, is that we use a RPS style strainer in the backside of the blower.
Question for you. Does a micron rating on that matter?
Absolutely. So
okay.
we have 125 and we have 200 micron. The 125 just isn't going to get the downstream push that we're looking for because we want to blow across as big of an area as possible in less movement, right? It's the idea of getting that painter to stand back and focus downstream and get that air to move. The whole idea behind supplemental air movement for a booth is to dehydrate water. How do we do that in a paint booth, especially specifically with a downdraft booth? A downdraft booth runs laminate air, so the air never really touches the vehicle itself, so there's nothing to encourage that water to draw out of that surface. So we want to blow turbulent air. Some different philosophies. One would be using things like air blades that use the CFM from a compressor and push as far as it can, but it's not necessarily the most turbulent. It'll be fast, but it's not turbulent air, so it's not going to help encourage that water out quite as fast.
So let me ask you a question, because the air blades, they really did come out strong.
Yes.
And there's a lot of those out there. I mean, you see them, I see them, and I've noticed that they push a very strong, almost like a beeline of air. It's just a lot. And I've noticed in the shops I've been in that use them, they seem to have a little bit of excess of dirt, which made no sense to me because I'm not really filtering air, I'm drawing in compressed air, so in theory, it should be clean. The other thing I've noticed is that it seems though the knife style movers, the windjet style movers will actually flatten the top surface off, and then it sits for 5 or 10 minutes, it almost re-wets. So what's causing that? How does the dry jet help eliminate that?
So our first issue with the hand wedge style blowers is that they chew up a lot of CFM and they're blowing too hard. Some of the waterborne paints, they need a little bit of time to allow themselves to level and work off. And if we blow too hard, like you said, we'll blow that surface flat. Well, the problem is with a flat surface, we're trying to replicate an OE finish, which has texture in it. So when we flatten that surface off, now we're not getting the same light reflectance off the surface, so we're gonna get color mismatch, we're gonna get poor sparkle value. We can also change and have a potential model that wouldn't have been there by not blowing so hard and letting the surface dry off on its own. Where the Dry Jet 2 makes that change is with this cone in the front of it, it breaks it up and it uses kind of the same philosophy of having multiple bands that shoot more of a flat surface versus a big round circular motion like regular blowers do. It's pulling in air at the back, but creating the Venturi effect in the chamber that creates bigger draw, which gives us bigger push. Now with that and having more push and having bands of turbulent air, they can hit the panel on the surface and dig that water out of the coating itself and help dehydrate that surface so we get a better, smoother finish that's still got the texture that we're looking for that light reflectance. But the other nice part is we don't have to worry about pushing things over. We're not overusing it. This will actually work at gun pressure, whereas a lot of guys will change their hose or they'll bump the air pressure up on the wall and try to choke down at the gun, which is also creating more performance issues within that booth. As far as the dirt goes, it's a maintenance thing, right? If we're pushing too hard, we can be making turbulent air down on the floor or pushing the dirt up off the floor of the booth and come up. We've got to be honest, paint booths aren't perfectly clean all the time.
They're not?
No.
So, here's one thing that comes up, and when the paint companies originally put waterborne in, they did the right thing. They gave everybody air movers, and they worked, right?
Right.
But as shops started to migrate towards, I'm going to add fans or I'm going to add corner blowers, you go in the shop and back in the corner, you see this box and there's an old air mover in there. It's dirty, it's crusty. Talk to the painter. I don't want to clean that thing. It doesn't work anyway. I don't need them. I get some of the arguments for maybe not using the older styles, right? Because I see the problems with them like anybody else. One of them, I think, that you guys really addressed is that front cone. Because with the old style where you don't have a cone, you kind of have this air just falling out, non-directional. So when it comes down to the air pressure with these, so maybe two questions for you is, I know you guys have the dial on the side there, and that's increase, decrease air pressure, right? So question one would be, how do you recommend a painter decides to make that adjustment? And then the second question, and it's the one that everybody worries about, is because that front feels like a rubberish type of texture to it.
Right.
What's the cleaning process on that?
Okay. So with the blower, some of the mistakes that painters make with these is they will stand in front of the blower when they're trying to blow something off like this bumper. When I'm here, now I can't get that field of pickup or that air volume that needs to come in through the back. I'm restricting that flow, so now I'm not getting the push. So when I'm using this as a painter, stepping off to the side and allowing it to open up and breathe and get the push that it needs to do is really important. The other thing too is focusing where I want that air to blow across. I don't want to blow at, I want to blow across panels. That way the turbulent air will do its job and work across this panel. That's a big factor to guys. The other one is to focus on that panel itself and not work your hand around and not have the focus on drying that area. If you pick a spot and stay there, let that water start wicking out. Now you can take that dry edge and you can push it across that panel and work it a little bit easier, but it takes focus of the air. If I'm sitting here and I feel like I need a little more turbulence, I can do little things like shake the blower and that'll help create a little more turbulent air, but I just don't want to be painting it with the blower itself. So that's a mistake that a lot of painters make when they say, well, a air amplifier doesn't work for me. Just don't get the push or the volume out of it. They're behind themselves and they don't focus. We really need that focus on it. As far as cleanup goes, we're gonna get overspray on these things, right?
Right.
So we know that we can take this off. This is a soft rubber like you were talking about. We can take some acetone or some waterborne cleaner, depending on the paint manufacturer that you have. We can take some of the different cleaners that are available in our mixing room and just lightly saturate a rag and wipe it off. As far as the RPS screen in the back, we're able to pop that out, throw it away, put a new piece in. We have our machined aluminum body, so we're able to wipe that off and go. You mentioned the control on the side.
Yeah.
With the control on the side, the dial, it's on and it's off, but there's a little bit of room in between. I'm gonna run wide open at gun pressure on the wall for when I'm blowing a large surface. With a small surface, I'm gonna dial that pressure back, and now I can move in a little closer and I can focus on a certain surface area that's closer, and I'm not having to worry about skimming that surface off and trapping that heavy water underneath that's going to create an adhesion problem or a gloss retention problem later on down the road because of trapped water.
Yeah, and something else, along that airspeed thing, and it kind of made me think of it as you were saying it, but, if a guy has a job masked up and there's, masking plastic and things like that on it, a lot of times you'll see a painter, I got the door back masked, there's plastic down there, he's kind of getting skeptical, man, I'm running a lot of pressure, I gotta walk over to the wall, bump it down so I don't flip this plastic up into it. I like the idea of being able to back that down without having to go back to the regulator so I can cut pressure if I need to stop a redo from potentially happening, right?
Saving steps and working smarter, not harder. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think that covers it. I learned more about it than I've ever known before. So thank you, Jim, appreciate it.
Knowledge is power.
Awesome.
Thanks, Danny.
Thanks, man.
For more information on this and other products sold by SATA by Dan M, check out satausa.com or the links below.